Welcome to the Explainer. Today, we're going to peel back the layers on what it really means to design something well. We're going way beyond just how things look and feel to uncover the deep responsibilities that shape the products and spaces that define our world.
All right, let's just start with a simple question. Look around you, right now. Think about your phone, your chair, maybe the clothes you're wearing. What makes any of that stuff good? Now, your first thought is probably about its appearance, right? Or maybe how easy it is to use, how well it works. But the real story, the one we're digging into today, goes so much deeper than that.
In fact, great design today isn't just about that finished thing you hold in your hand. It's actually defined by this powerful and often totally invisible set of responsibilities a designer has to think about every single step of the way.
Okay, let's get right into it. We're going to start with the most fundamental responsibility there is, safety. This is a designer's first, and you could argue most critical promise.
And look, this isn't some afterthought. It's not a box you check off at the very end. Safety has to be woven through the entire design journey, from start to finish. We're talking about the designer's own personal safety in the workshop, and just as important, the safety of the person who's going to end up using the product.
So when designers are working with stuff that could be hazardous, chemicals and things, there's this super critical guide called a Material Safety Data Sheet, or MSDS. You can kind of think of it like a safety cheat sheet. It lays out every potential hazard, exactly how to handle the material, and what to do in an emergency. It's what lets creators be innovative without putting themselves at risk.
And then, of course, you've got the gear that protects you directly. We're talking about personal protective equipment, or PPE. And this stuff, it is absolutely not optional. It's essential. Every single item you see here, from glasses to gloves, is a vital barrier between the creator and a potential hazard.
What this all boils down to is a kind of mental checklist, right? It's this internal conversation every responsible designer has with themselves. They're asking these questions about research, training, waste disposal, and they're asking them before they even start building anything. This self-check makes sure that both the process and the final product are as safe as they can possibly be.
Okay, so that's safety. But let's see how this idea of responsibility builds on itself. We're going to expand our view now, from just the safety of one person to the ethical impact of a design on all the people behind the product. So think about this for a second. Every single material, every component, it has a story. An ethical designer, well, they have a responsibility to know that story, to know where it came from and who is involved in making it. And this is where things get tricky. The choice between producing something locally or overseas is a classic ethical crossroads for designers. Yeah, manufacturing offshore might be cheaper, but it can come with huge risks. We're talking about poor working conditions or a supply chain that's almost impossible to monitor. It's this constant balancing act between cost and, human impact. But, for some companies, this isn't a compromise they're willing to make. Take the Australian clothing brand Anuka. They've literally built their entire brand around their ethical stance. This quote just says it all. Production should be a respectful and lasting relationship. That's powerful. And this is such a brilliant example of how a single choice, what fabric to use, can say so much. By choosing certified organic cotton, Anuka isn't just picking a material. They're making a huge statement about worker safety, the health of the environment, and building a fair supply chain from the ground up. And that leads us perfectly into the biggest scale of responsibility we're going to talk about, the long-term impact our designs have not just on people, but on the entire planet. This is all about designing for tomorrow. You see, a really responsible designer doesn't just think about the moment you use their product. They think about its entire life story. This whole view is called a life cycle analysis. It's about looking at every single step of its journey, from the very beginning, the cradle, to the very end, the grave. And that journey is what we're looking at right here. A product starts by taking resources from the earth. Then it uses up energy to be manufactured. It lives its life with you, the consumer. But then what? What happens after that? Does it just get thrown in a landfill? Can it be recycled? A responsible designer has to have answers for this, because every single one of these stages has an environmental cost. Okay, to really see this in action, let's go big. Let's look at architecture. How can something as massive as a building be designed to be, respectful of the world around it? Well, the work of architect Richard Cole gives us a fantastic answer. His designs are just incredible examples of how thoughtful choices can create spaces that are not only gorgeous, but also deeply connected to their environment.
I mean, he uses recycled materials. He orients the house to capture natural sunlight for heat, and he even lifts the whole thing up on piers to avoid messing with the land. That is sustainability in action.
All right, so we've talked safety, ethics, and the environment. Let's bring this all home and talk about how a designer actually communicates all these crucial decisions.
Because here's the thing. A huge part of being a responsible designer is being able to justify every single choice you make. It's not enough to just do the right thing. You have to be able to document and explain the why behind it. And a simple tool like this table is incredibly powerful for doing just that. It lets designers track their decisions and explain them clearly. It creates this narrative that shows how their research into safety, ethics, and the environment led them directly to the final product. It's the story of their responsible choices. So at the end of the day, it really all comes down to these three core pillars: safety for people, ethical treatment for everyone in the supply chain, and being a good steward of the environment. And these aren't separate things to worry about. They're all woven together. They're the foundation of what it means to be a responsible designer today.
So, we want to leave you with this final thought. Every single object in your life, it's the result of countless choices. And now that you get the responsibilities behind those choices, the safety, the ethics, the sustainability, you can start to see your world and even your own role in it in a completely new way. Thanks for joining us.